Jack Ma serves as visiting professor at University of Tokyo and Hong Kong University. Discord leaks reveal countries staying out of the U.S. rivalry with China and Russia. Sky-high hotel prices. Many tourists to Mount Huangshan have to sleep in public toilets. Taiwanese Coast Guard officers can now make decision to fire weapons.
Alibaba founder Jack Ma has become a visiting professor at Tokyo College, as the best-known Chinese businessman has recently been actively focusing on education. Reuters reported that Ma joined the school on May 1st and will contribute in several areas. He will advise on important research themes, conduct research, and give lectures on entrepreneurship and innovation. His tenure at the college is expected to end in October, but the contract can be renewed. The announcement came after Ma returned to mainland China in March, ending more than a year of overseas travel. The South China Morning Post reported that he also joined the University of Hong Kong as a visiting professor last month. He has been appointed as an honorary professor in the Faculty of Business and Economics for a 3-year term ending in 2026. Previously, he served as an honorary professor in Innovation and Technology at Israel's Tel Aviv University, which awarded him an honorary doctorate in 2018. Additionally, Ma continued to serve on the Tsinghua University School of Economics and Management Advisory Board. He has held this position since being appointed in 2013, alongside Apple CEO Tim Cook and American venture capitalist Jim Breyer. Ma is one of China's best-known businessmen. He left mainland China in late 2021 and has been spotted in Europe, Japan, Australia, and Thailand since then. The Chinese communist regime cracked down on his business empire after Ma publicly criticized China's regulatory system in 2020. Earlier this year, Jack Ma gave up control of his firm Ant Group as the billionaire founder retreated further from his business empire. In another disclosure of the leaked Pentagon documents, The Washington Post listed 4 governments that have decided to hedge their bets on the US, China, Russia confrontation. The countries are India, Brazil, Pakistan, and Egypt. Their reasons for neutrality vary. For Pakistan, US intelligence learned that it might be tilting toward Russia, while trying to appear neutral between China and the US. A February 17th document shows Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif negotiated trade and energy deals with Russia while abstaining from supporting the Western-backed resolution. Pakistan has received billions of dollars from the US in economic and security assistance after 9/11, but the Washington Post noted that the Middle Eastern nation is currently under heavy Chinese debt. On the other hand, those aware of India's decision-making said it has long depended on Moscow for support at the UN, and has little alternative but to sustain its ties with Russia in terms of energy and economic matters. However, they say India does not support the Ukraine war. The leaked documents show that India refused to support the Western-backed UN resolution over Ukraine. While the country cited its principled position, intelligence learned that New Delhi had assured Russia of its support in multilateral venues and tried to prevent the war from being discussed at a G20 meeting. The documents indicate that Brazil was seeking to become a global mediator between the US-China rivalry amid the Ukraine crisis. However, such efforts displeased NATO, as it accused the alliance of worsening the Ukraine war by supporting Kiev, while proposing that Russia could keep Crimea but cede some other land in Ukraine, which Zelensky opposes. Meanwhile, US intelligence gathered that Egypt had secretly planned to send Russia 40,000 rockets, but later postponed it and switched to producing artillery rounds for Ukraine instead. The Washington Post said the country is at a crossroads between receiving more than $1 billion a year in aid from Washington and its ties with Moscow. The outlet reported that Russia is building Egypt's first nuclear power plant and promising to provide it with military hardware. Matthias Spector, a scholar at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, pointed out that China and Russia rival US power for developing nations. While China displayed new economic and military strength, Russia's Ukraine war showed resilience against Western pressure. Spector said, "It's unclear who will end up in a pole position in 10 years' time, so they need to diversify their risk and hedge their bets." A February 17th assessment from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence said Central Asian nations are keen on reducing their Russia reliance. However, the leaked files said China is rising as their top option for its immediate deliverables. Nonetheless, Spector commented that developing nations would still be afraid of the US. He said, "When you're dealing with a mammoth, it doesn't matter whether the mammoth is sympathetic to what you're saying. When it moves, the earth still shakes."
During this year's International Workers' Day, or May 1st holiday, tourist destinations in China were crowded with people, hotel prices were sky high, and queues to use toilets were long, reports Gmo News. Moreover, a video taken by a netizen showed on April 29th a large number of tourists had to spend the night in a public restroom in Guangming Peak, Huangshan Scenic Area, Anhui Province. The Huangshan Scenic Area Management responded that these tourists might not have booked a hotel on the mountain or had left it too late to descend the mountain. According to the management, the hotels in Mount Huangshan were not overloaded, but over 800 tourists still chose to spend the night in the mountain's public areas. But due to the limited capacity in public places, many tourists slept in public toilets. Netizens shared photos of tourists crammed into a toilet, saying it is very difficult for these tourists to find a seat or a standing position, let alone lying down to sleep, not to mention the toilet's hygiene and odor problem. One video shows people sitting or lying on the toilet floor overnight. Some were covered with blankets. In the video, a voice through the loudspeaker says, "If you guys are determined to stay here overnight, please observe public order and do not affect other people's use of the restroom." Long lines of people waiting outside the toilets at some Chinese tourist attractions raise the concern of how many sleep in these unhygienic conditions.
The Legislative Yuan on May 2nd approved a proposal that would grant Taiwan's Coast Guard administration officers the authority to determine the use of artillery and immediate response to deal with in the case of emergency. According to Taiwan News, the CGA Director General still had the final say on whether to use force. However, in emergencies or when it was difficult to communicate with headquarters, the most senior officer on the spot might determine whether to employ cannons and fire. The cabinet approved the proposed changes on March 30th and then sent them to the Legislative Yuan for further consideration. In the third reading, the amended proposal was passed with the clarification of roles in the event of an armed incident. The newly passed proposal said that in case suspects threatened or attacked CGA personnel with dangerous arms, objects, or boats, they could employ weapons if there were no other means to defuse the situation. Additionally, to clarify the appropriateness and legality of instrument use, an investigation panel would be established to look into any use of weapons like guns or cannons during the incident. This panel also helps shed light on controversial situations and protect the parties' rights. The CGA has been actively fighting against the smuggling of illegal drugs and pursuing Taiwanese waters illegal fishing trawlers and dredging ships, most often from China.